What's up, NHL fans? Welcome to the final day of the NHL regular season, the final show of the NHL regular season. A lot to get into with the playoff matchups essentially set. We're going to look at all the different series that are locked in for the first round and give our predictions today with Mike Rupp from the NHL Network, a Stanley Cup champion, alongside Colby Cohen. I'm Jonny Lazarus, and this is Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet, remember to bet on Betway. Please play responsibly. And remember, you must be 19 years of age or older. So last night, Austin Matthews plays in the game, does not score a goal, 12 shots on goal, plays about 21 minutes. Not a team guy? What do you think, Colby?
I mean, you certainly made that declaration on social media last night, and then I'm kind of surprised Leafs fans didn't jump on that more.
I think it's so obviously a joke that it makes it so funny that there was one person commenting like, I can't tell if you're serious, Johnny. I can't tell. Like, please tell me you're kidding. And I just, I thought it was hilarious.
So you were kidding.
Yeah, obviously I'm kidding.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were kidding. I mean,
you're the one who said it on the show yesterday.
What are you talking about?
That was the whole conversation we had.
How many AI clips did you make yesterday after the show of me? I mean, because what you posted on social media it wasn't even real.
I know that made your skin crawl, huh? Just you saying that I'm right to everybody, letting everyone know.
You were right. You were right about something.
Yeah. I'm right a lot of the time.
Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. And when you throw shit against the wall so frequently like you do in this beautiful sport of ours, you're bound to be right once a month. I mean, I'll give you that much.
Well, let's bring in Rupper and ask him his thoughts about this. First of all, good morning, Rupper. What's going on?
Hey, first of all, about throwing shit against the wall. I get this thing on social media. I don't know if you guys can make it out here. Let me see if I can get the picture. That's Pascal Rayon.
Yeah,
Come on, Johnny. I thought we were boys. You know, Johnny. Hey, you know what, Colby? I'm starting to figure this guy out. We're boys. We're tight. And all of a sudden now he doesn't even know what I freaking look like. I know I look like I'm in disguise this morning with my glasses and hat, but like, come on, Johnny.
Rupper,
I don't want to point fingers.
I spend 4 hours a week on FaceTime with him doing this show. 4 hours a week. He very rarely even says my name right, Rupper. So
people are calling you Karen now. It confuses me.
I feel the disrespect that you are feeling this. Well, I guess not beautiful morning. You're in Jersey, right? So you've probably got the same weather I've got down the turnpike. But I feel you, Rupper. It's really Johnny's world and what have you done for me lately type of guy. So I would just say be careful feeling like you're too good of friends with him because it will come back to bite you in the ass.
He does a good job of making you feel special until he doesn't. So anyways, let's go ahead, Johnny. What do you got?
Well, we like to keep people accountable on this show. And I did say to our producer, Vic, I was like, I don't think that looks like Rupper. He goes, yeah, I don't know if it's him.
Hey, in all honesty, though, like that picture's been used before. I think it's fonted as me. I think it's on like Getty or something. I don't know where it came from, but it's happened before. So just messing.
Vic might have to pop his face in here and apologize.
No. Leave Vic out of this, Johnny. This is your fault. Let's talk hockey with Rupper. Let's not waste this time, all right?
All right, so Rupper, Colby and I were talking yesterday. Matthews plays in last night's game, meaningless game, doesn't score 70. Selfish or not selfish for him to not rest before the playoffs?
I don't think it's selfish. I mean, I think at that time of year, you do whatever's going to get you ready, right?
Yeah.
Put it this way. I mean, if Austin Matthews now comes out in the playoffs and looks in game 1 and 2 against the Bruins, looks like he has no juice, it's probably going to be revisited. You know, I think guys' opinion on it. So, I mean, I think it's just as long as Austin Matthews plays and doesn't look like he's worn out, then it should be fine. I don't know. I mean, it was I always thought that, especially coming down the end, I think the NBA has kind of set that new standard of resting players, and we hear this conversation, these talks a lot. I think it's from a team-to-team standpoint. I think, you know, maybe you guys would agree with that. I'd want a coach that comes up and be like, what do you want? Like, what is your best way to be ready? You want to get all excuses out the window. So, you know, there's certain guys I think that don't want to be out, or you're going to have to force them to be out. Whether they're chasing something like that or not. I mean, I will say this though, he looked like he kind of wanted 70 last night.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
We just listen for good reason. Like he was on the cusp of an incredible feat. There were two guys looking for that in that game. We can talk a little bit later when we get into this Florida Tampa Bay series on Kucherov. But, I saw the way Willie Nylander played in the game, Rupper, and then I saw the quotes and the comments from Sheldon Keefe. So, I'm curious, why was he playing? Because he clearly didn't want to play. Matthews looked like he wanted to be there, and Nylander looked like he checked out 2 weeks ago. Why wouldn't Sheldon Keefe have given Willie Nylander the option? Because we saw the effort. I mean, the effort was not, not going to make many people feel like, oh, this guy looks like he's gearing up for playoffs.
You know what? In full transparency, I was, I caught a lot of the Matthews stuff. I was working the Islanders Pens game, so I didn't see Willie. Okay. Was it that bad? Was it
it's pretty bad.
I might have to go back and watch some of it now.
There were some shifts where you're like, oh my God, he's legitimately treating this like it's a pond hockey game. This is the best clip. He knocks this puck down out of midair, which, okay, then you can't touch it. But, look at him. I mean, that's bad.
Boom, breakaway goal.
Oh!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, listen, Willie's going to Willie, and that's what he does. I will say this. Yeah, that's a little bit come on, man. Maybe fake it a little bit, but he's the last guy I'm kind of concerned about. I think last year, especially in the playoffs, he's proven that he's a gamer. I think he'll step up. I mean, that's a tough look, though.
Also, Rupper, the Matthews question, we're making it clear that it was unselfish of Kucherov to play because he got the 100 assists, but selfish of Matthews to play because he didn't get the 70 goals. That's the narrative we're running with.
Hey, here's my question, though. It's it feels like a stupid question. But we all have set up in our heads so much 70 goals, incredible, crazy. Hasn't been done in such a long time. And it almost feels like it's crazy that's happening now and where hockey's kind of at, even though we're getting a lot of points now. I mean, goals at that clip is crazy. But between that and then the 100 assist club that we've been speaking about with Connor and with Cooch, the fact that he stopped at 69, do you think that kind of takes away from the story and maybe he doesn't get the proper Hart love? Or do you think that, it sounds stupid. I get it. It's one.
No, this has been a real conversation.
But to fill the realm of everything we're talking about. I mean, I put it this way. I don't know what people have as far as Connor with the 100, as far as the Hart Trophy. I personally, I don't have him probably in the top. Definitely not in the top 4. Maybe he's top 5 for me. But if he wasn't at 100 assists, maybe that would change quite a bit. And I think the same thing with Austin Matthews. I wonder if because he did not get it, that this hurts him in the Hart Trophy run.
I said for the last couple of weeks, and I've kind of gotten killed for it, that if he doesn't get 70, then he's just not there. He's not in the top 4 or 5. But if he got 70, it changes everything. I was like, if he gets 69, even though I literally said this may sound dumb, but that one goal changes everything in the way that I look at him in that Hart situation. It shouldn't, but it does. Yeah. I can't quite put my finger on it. So I don't think that it's a dumb question at all. I've kind of been saying it for the last couple of weeks, Johnny, and I truly believe that. And even if it's unfair.
I mean, not to make this about the Rangers, but you can't call Panarin a 50-goal scorer. So, that changes things too, right? It's kind of the same approach.
It certainly does. Yeah, I don't know. Just food for thought. I mean, I don't have Austin winning it anyways, but I thought, man, you get to 70, all of a sudden it kind of changes the narrative. And again, to Colby, your point, it sounds really stupid, but that's how I feel when I look at it.
I know. So with that Boston-Toronto series, because I know we're kind of hopping around here, but I do want to pick your brain on each of these Eastern series because you do see the East a lot. You call games in the East. You're on NHL Network, all this. Do you think this is finally the year where Toronto can get over the Boston hump and slay the big bad Bruin dragon? Or are we talking split the core 4 10 days from now, 12 days from now, because yet again, they couldn't get it done in the playoffs?
I've said this to myself. I've said it on air. I always like Boston. I never quite give them the credit that they're due. And it always comes back, and I have to admit, like, man, I was wrong about these guys. Like, these guys are legit. What they have going there and what they've established there, and the expectations when you put on that sweater, man, it's impressive what's been done there. I think Jim Montgomery, and you can go back to Bruce Cassidy. I mean, this has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
And I've always said, all right, this is the year they take a step back. Doesn't happen. This year they take a step back. Doesn't happen. I thought this year they would be, I learned my lesson. So I'm like, I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm not going to say they're going to miss the playoffs, but I thought they'd be more of a middle pack team. They're not, they're still an elite team. That's why I'm hesitant, because I kind of feel like this Leafs team's a little different. Like, I kind of feel like this Leafs team is going to win the series. But then I sit there and I think, dude, how dumb are you? Like, this happens every single time you pick against Boston. I just kind of feel like this Leafs team has answered some things, and it's not perfect. It's not great. I don't love a lot of things as far as the build of the team. I have question marks, but they've answered some of the questions that I've had. They seem to be a little different. I think the additions that they've made, I mean, I think Bertuzzi has been incredible for them. I think Max Domi is going to come through in a big way in the playoffs for them. They just have a little bit of a different swagger. They've always had swagger, a little bit of a different swagger now that I think can maybe win them games that look different and from what they generally love to play. They like to play their way. And when you make them not play their way or struggle to play their way, they're not very good. Well, they've answered that. And I think they're a little bit better in that department. I don't know where this goes, guys. I mean, I'm leaning Toronto, but then that big thing keeps popping up, man. Boston Bruins are a well-oiled machine, and they play and they give themselves a chance to win every night. Not too many teams in the league have that.
Do you think the goaltenders in Boston are rotating? Like, if you're head coach, are you planning going Swayman, Ullmark, or like, because that's another big question that I don't think Monty handled well last year. It's been a lot of things, a lot of people have talked about it. They haven't done it all season. So where do you go if you're Jim Montgomery with your goaltending situation?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think for me, Swayman's the guy. I think you go Sway, and it's a very similar situation, I think, than what you're going to probably see with the Islanders, where you give the guy the game. This is no knock on, let's say, for example, Jeremy Swayman, say he gets the nod in game one and say they lose that game. That doesn't mean it's automatically on the goaltender. You need to make a switch. I mean, it depends, I guess, what that game looks like. I mean, if Swayman's making 10 bell saves left and right and you lose the game, you'll probably come back with him in game two. But I also think if you just lose the game and you just want to kind of switch up the juju, I think right then maybe you go with Linus Ullmark. And I think that the same thing is going to happen. I think you're going to have Varley starting this Islanders series against Carolina. Not to jump ahead here, but it's going to be the same vibe. Like, they lose a game, I think you go with Ilya. I think Sorokin comes in. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing. All you do know is you have two very good goaltenders in Boston. And for me, it kind of feels like it's going to be that. But then I also wonder, Colby, what you're kind of alluding to, the way that's been managed in the past of kind of going back and forth, and then all of a sudden you get to a certain part and you're putting a guy in a really tough spot, and it's hard to get the results you want. So, going to be intriguing, but I think it's probably just you win. It's Sway. You're going to stay with them. If you lose, you're probably going with Ullmark and see what you can go with.
Rupper, before I get to my question, I just want to say this playoff preview is presented by Parasso, which is a company that's sponsoring myself to grow a playoff beard since Colby can't. Looks like you got your playoff beard going already, but
I can. I just won't.
No, you can't. You just get the peach fuzz above your lip.
I can, but I won't.
Parasso.
Be careful. If you grow it, he might mistake you for somebody else, and you never know. You know
he already can't say my name, Rupper.
That's true. But Parasso is the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Parazzo has been a staple of Italian culture barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at parazzo-usa.com with our promo code hockey15 in all caps, hockey15. And my question to you, Rupper, we've kind of debated it the last couple of weeks about which team can afford the first round exit the most in the NHL. These are 2 teams to me. Toronto, with all that disappointment over the past few years of first round exits. Last year, I know they get to the second round, but Boston last year, has this magical regular season, record-setting season, gets upset in the first round. Which team between these 2 right now do the fan bases go berserk here in a first round loss, and we see a lot of things shaken up? Because to me, it's 2 different stories, but 2 pretty similar feelings, just like different tunes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, both would obviously stir up a reaction. You're going to get one of them. We know this. Toronto's probably the worst one for me because it's Toronto, so it's a little different level as far as the attention it gets from any team in the league, but also because it kind of feels like, oh, we're resorting back to what we were, right? Like I thought we slayed this dragon before, and it kind of gets to the point where I think some focus starts getting turned to different areas of this team. And, that's the big core 4 and all that stuff. I mean, that's been in question for a while. They've stayed with that group. I wonder, and you hear some whispers out there, does this all of a sudden start, switching? You've got some new faces at MLSE. Is it Brendan Shanahan that gets looked at this? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things I think that can go sideways or south if the Toronto Maple Leafs lose in round 1. So I think that's the one that would, if it happened, would have the biggest question marks.
Well, and I know Boston, they definitely called this a transition year. And, they went out and they did those $1 million signings. They bring in Reamer, they bring in Shaddy. They didn't do anything crazy, right? And their whole plan was, let's get through this year. Next year, we've got a ton of money coming off the books. We've got a ton of opportunity. But I kind of wonder with Boston, like, did that change when they went out and had as good a regular season as they did? Like, I think expectations went from let's get through this year to now ownership is probably putting pressure on Cam Neely and says, we want playoff games past the first round. I mean, the Jacobs are cutthroat owners. They're not, maybe the most beloved owners by any stretch of imagination. Every time there's a lockout, it seems like Jeremy Jacobs is on the forefront of saying the nastiest things about the players of any owner. And so I start to wonder what the pressure will go from him to Cam, and then Cam right to Donnie. And those guys have worked together a really long time. Don Sweeney was assistant there for a while before he was the GM. They go back to playing together. You know how these relationships can stale. And then I wonder about Jim Montgomery, who couldn't be more different than Don Sweeney personality-wise. So I agree with you, Rupper. Like, I think Toronto definitely massive changes, coaching change, all this and that. But I just don't buy the narrative in Boston that people are going to be okay with a first-round exit because it was a transition year. I think expectations have changed, and I think people will be held accountable, whether it's in the front office or the coach's room, if they were to lose in the first round.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I mean, there's going to be, the needle's going to move for both cities, regardless of, what plays out in this series. If Boston does lose, I agree, because this is a go-getter type team, and that's the mentality they've had. I mean, and quite frankly, that's why they've stayed relevant. Like, that's why they have that culture they have there. I mean, I hate to always go back to, aren't they kind of like, in some ways, the Patriots, right? Like, it's just, we expect to be there. We expect to win. And that's what everybody expects when they join the team or come up through the system. It's you could say that this team has overachieved this year, but I don't think that's going to get much runway in Boston, right? Like, they don't necessarily accept that. I think here's the one thing this is my personal opinion on the Bruins, which I thought, don't even get me going, because this goes way back. Like, I always think, just like anything else, you talk about teams or situations. We talk about sports a lot like it's the stocks, right? Like, you want to trade high, right? You want to get it at the right time. I think back to the Penguins. we'll go off base a little bit. I'll bring it back to the Bruins. After the 2017 Cup, I said it, and I had discussions. People thought I was crazy. And it's easy to say it now, so it's not a pat on my back at all. But can you imagine what it would look like? At that time, you've got 2016, 2017 Stanley Cup champs. You've got Matt Murray, who just came on the scene. He was still deemed a rookie. Remember, he's a two-time Cup winner, still under the disguise of a rookie as far as NHL standards. I'm like, you need to trade him. Trade this guy now. We knew that the pipeline for this team, they haven't picked high and all those things. That was the time. You had Marc-Andre Fleury. And it's easy to say it now because Flower is still playing and has been pretty good. But can you imagine what they would have been able to add pieces-wise of a Matt Murray, who, if you recall, at that time was deemed like the future, one of the great goalies in the league. And, it doesn't happen that way. So I think going even back to this last year and the way Linus Ullmark was acquired, the way that he's kind of gotten in and built up, I love what he's done. You should have traded him this past offseason. You should have traded him. He's coming off of Vezina. Sway is your guy eventually. He's going to be a starter, and he probably is now in the NHL. And when you're coming off a summer where you had the center ice deficiencies that this team had, your strongest asset is in net. And I've always felt this. It's great. Be patient with it. You've got two great goaltenders that can go, toe to toe for that starting job. But at the same rate, one of them's not going to play every night. So your strongest assets, one of them's not going to dress. You know what I mean? Wouldn't you rather use that equity in other parts of your lineup? Like, that's an area that I think is going to come back and bite this Bruins team. They're going to find at some point in the playoffs here, still, even though they've had great stories with Charlie Coyle, the way that Zach has moved around this lineup, they still lack center ice depth. And I think that could have been addressed and then some if you traded Linus Ullmark in the offseason.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we have to move on here to the next series. But before we do, we got to give our picks for this series. We have to. So, Rupper, putting you on the spot here.
Picking games too, or just series?
Games.
Oh, gosh.
I'm saying Toronto in 6.
I'm going to say Toronto in 7.
Colby?
Yeah, I think Toronto.
Wow.
And I think Toronto in 6.
Wow. Look at us, huh? All right.
We all might have to wear this, I'm being honest. Because I've seen this story before when I pick against the Bruins. So,
yep.
No, and honestly, it feels sacrilegious for me to do it. And two of my best friends play for that Bruins team, and I'd love to see Reamer get a cup. I really would. And Shaddy get another cup, but I look at them down the middle, and it worries me, and I wonder about secondary scoring. And like, I wonder if Charlie Coyle is going to continue in the playoffs, and it's just, there's just question marks. And I didn't like the way Monty managed them in the playoffs last year. Like, I hope he learns from that. So I just feel like I have as many question marks for the Bruins. And that's why I just think eventually, like the Leafs are going to get over this hump.
All right, let's go into the Rangers and Capitals now. And I'm going to hit you with a tough one. It might not be so tough to answer, but a tough question to ask. And is there any individual player in this postseason right now with more pressure than Artemi Panarin to perform?
It's a good one. I didn't even think about it from that standpoint. Obviously, we know that there is. So I've always thought with Panarin, I think it's pretty universal. He's been worth every penny that the Rangers.
1,000%.
I mean, and I always go back to this, not just in New York area, just in professional sports. When you sign a big contract in a big market, very rarely can you say that. I think we can say that with Panarin. But now it gets to the point where, okay, well, show me in the postseason. And it's been challenging at times, I feel like, for him. I mean, this is no hiding it. When you're game planning, like, fellas, you guys have been in those rooms. Like, when you're game planning for a team, like, you're game planning for Artemi Panarin. Like, he is first and foremost the guy you're coming in and you're trying to slow down, shut down, make life miserable. Can he figure it out? This is my concern almost with him and just this team in general, very blanketing statement, but it's their power play is so much for them to feel good about themselves. And that's not a bad thing. We talk about it sometimes like, oh, well, they just have a good power. That's a good thing, man. Like, we need to quit making this like, oh, that's a bad thing that they rely on their power play. It comes through. 5-on-5 play is a concern. It's a concern a lot of people are talking about. And it's a concern for me with Artemi Panarin, because I think 5-on-5, if you're doing your due diligence and you're the Washington Capitals, you're making life miserable for number 10. All right, like you're doing everything you can to make it where he is. You're finishing every hit. You're probably assigning certain players to just be shadowing him and make his life miserable. It's going to be a battle. I think that's the biggest thing for Panarin to deal with right now is, can Artemi kind of slay the beast of not really being all world come playoff time. I mean, no hiding it. If he can, they can go. If he can't, they won't. And I think that's kind of where it's at for me with this team.
And he was almost a point a game guy 2 years ago in the playoffs during their run, so I don't think he was dominant.
Remember, he was, if you remember though, that was the round against the Penguins, right? In round one. And he was pretty quiet, and then he had that big goal against them, and he kind of got going, right? If I recall, he was kind of non-existent for a stretch.
He was.
And then he got hot, and then he ran. So that's the thing with him. He can run hot. It's just I like for him to run hot and get going right away.
Well, and you've gotta, like, the greatest players, they take their great regular seasons and then they go to a whole nother level. And even like, I even want to see that with like Matthews this year. Like, I know we've already moved on, but like, even if you're good in the playoffs, I need you to be great in the playoffs. And like, there are certain guys in the history, the great players, and then some guys who were good regular season players or really good, and then great playoff players. I mean, like Justin Williams, for example, and Danny Briere. And I remember Keith Primo, you probably played, in some of those series back. Well, maybe not, Rupper. You probably were pretty young.
Not that old, buddy. I'm not
I was going to say, how old are you, Rupper? Like, are you in your late 30s?
No, I'm 44.
Okay,
44. So we're not far off. Just a couple years off.
You missed by a couple years, but even I remember Keith Primo used to just be like a good regular season guy, and then he'd get into the playoffs and he would just go off. So let's see Panarin do that. And who are we getting out of Artemi Panarin in the playoffs this year?
Here's why I think it'll be different. Not just because he had a great year, and we've talked about it before. I still have him. He maybe has slipped a little bit in my Hart Trophy as far as I think if I'm picking a top three, I have Panarin and Matthews kind of tied at 3. I don't see either of them winning it, but I think Panarin needs love in the heart. That's another conversation. But by this year, the confidence he's getting off this type of season will serve him well. But here's the kicker for me, guys, is that number 49. He's got 49 goals. So in the past, in the playoffs, Artemi Panarin's very similar. I remember playing against Patty Kane when he first came in the league. Right? Patty Kane came in and he was great. He's Patrick Kane. He was very one-dimensional offensively. He was a pass first, always pass first. And there's been times where Panarin just simply doesn't shoot the puck. This has been in prior years, I feel like. His shot volume's been way up. He's made a point of shooting the puck now. I think with his 49 goals, you date back, I mean, you talked 2 years ago in that playoffs. He had 22 that season in the regular season. I mean, he's got 49 goals.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, how do you play him? Like, if he can still lean into that, don't change that. You got a shot, maybe sometimes force the shot. Because if all of a sudden you're being a trigger man at times and you're just letting that shot go, and I love that one-timer when he gets going. He's a violent shooter for his size. All of a sudden now, how do we play him? We can't play off of him because he's snapping him home over our goalie's shoulder. And I think that'll open up a whole new level for him come playoff time. And I don't think he's experienced that yet. I think he's only experienced guys playing pass on him. Now guys have to respect that shot because he almost got 50 this year. I'm interested to see if he uses that as a weapon.
There's a rally cry of support in the chat right now of people saying the reason, not just necessarily the reason, but basically giving Lafreniere a lot of credit for Panarin's success, saying he makes him a lot more dangerous because he's not wheeling around dead weight line mates like he has in previous playoff series. So, I mean, look, I guess if 50, we don't need to do this. We don't do this.
Don't do it.
The guy's a good player, but let's not do this.
Well, I want to flip it over to the Washington side and then come back to the Rangers side to close it out. But for the Capitals, do they have any chance, literally any chance at winning this series? I think Lindgren will steal a game, but Colby and I were actually talking about, I didn't even tell him what it was yet. I wanted to make a bet in this series with Colby, and we make a lot of stupid bets on this show, typically out of my mouth. But I'm willing to bet that Lafreniere actually has more goals in this series than Ovechkin.
Oh, I can see that. It's when you talk about Washington, like Ovi's going to be the guy you're going to talk about and you're going to watch. And there's been a lot of other great stories this year that's given Washington this opportunity. And even down the stretch when Ovi got going, I mean, there was plenty of games where he didn't and he wasn't going and they still found ways to win. I can see that happening with Laff. I think this could be a really big breakout playoffs. If they go on a long run, I think Laff's going to bring his career to another level. And I think those two go hand in hand. I don't think they do unless he has a big breakout year in the playoffs. Washington is
by the way, I'm happy to take that bet. Just that? You can sign me up for that bet. Well, I'll ride with the guy who's going to end up being the greatest goal scorer of all time. Over
you want that one? All right,
I'll take that bet, Johnny.
That's why I framed it the way I did.
Sold.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's. I mean, Ovi's the X factor, right? Like, who knows what he's going to be like in the playoffs here? I mean, I know he's going to be shooting everything.
But Rupp Lavi also coached this team the last few years too. This is a team that Peter Laviolette knows very well,
Yeah. I mean, but it's just hard for me to think that Washington. I mean, listen. They're not going to roll over. They didn't get to the position they're at by. Some might argue this, but by chance. You could say they backed into the playoffs. You could say whatever you want. I mean, there's 5 teams in the East that were pretty pathetic at times going down the stretch. They were one of them, but they're in. And I think that just creates a whole new level of excitement. You wash away what's happened in the past and you move forward. But still, when you look at the build of this team, it's not a great team, right? Like, and I also think, depending on what happens with Nick Jensen here, I don't know if you guys have seen any updates. That hurts, man. That hurts. I mean, you got to exploit that if you're the Rangers. They got a lot of inexperience on the back end. I think Washington, I think Lindgren steals them a game. If the Rangers bring energy, the Rangers win this series, I feel like pretty easily.
So last part of this series, right? Two-parter. Is Matthew Rempe in game 1 lineup, and then give us your prediction?
He's been ready for this, man. Colby, you have no idea what's coming to you right now.
I don't think he'll be in the game 1 lineup. I will say this, and Johnny and I have talked about it a lot. I am concerned with the lack of smoking certain things out with Matt Rempe down the stretch. And with that being said, it looks like Brodzinski is the one that comes out if Rempe goes in. It seems like that's been the thing. I also think that 4th line without Matt Rempe has been really, really good. And situationally, I think Peter Laviolette likes to use them and as a specialty line and have certain matchups. And so this is where it gets tough. Like, I'm not saying I would have done anything differently. No, I would have done something differently, but that still might be the 4th line to go with, right? But my thing here with Matt Rempe is I feel like you've got, and I hate using the word weapon because people are automatically going to be like, yeah, weapon, he's going to, take guys' heads off. That's not what I mean. You have something unique that nobody else has. Like, nobody else, like, and you guys have seen it, and some people might think it's garbage, and that's fine. But I know when that guy steps on the ice, MSG has a different volume, has a different feel. I've been there. You guys have been there. I seen it. I can feel it. I can feel it through my damn TV. So how do we harness that? How do we use that? Can we use it? Is he disciplined enough? Is he a good enough player to be able to play come playoff time? Can we use him to be a fierce forechecker? Because I've seen defensemen completely bail on plays, rush plays, turnover city and you can get some sustained pressure just because he's on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we know any of that.
Right.
So I think it's a weapon that you have that you haven't really figured out how to use it, if we can use it. And now I think it's not going to be used. And with all that being said, this is a team that I found over the last number of years. I've loved the Rangers. I do. And I think they've got a great opportunity. They're a sleepy team at times. They've got players on their team who are great personalities, great guys. I played with Kreids, love them to death. But sometimes they need an emotional boost. They got very chill individuals on the team. And that's who they are. And
Fox seems like he has a pretty chill personality.
So
right. And that
he
helps
plays,
them.
yeah.
That helps them in a lot of scenarios, a lot of ways it helps them. But you also need to complement that. And I just think you got a walking gasoline can that it might not see it. And what I fear is that the way that it kind of has been used, he's been used as a hitman. And so now when you put him into a series and you need a spark or you need something, now as a player, because I've been in that position before, like him in some regards, where I don't know, I'm not feeling the game. He hasn't had enough experience.
5 minutes. I mean, he's playing 5 minutes a night in the regular season, and he's not.
But Colby, I'm not saying he's going to be the answer for anything.
Yeah.
But down the stretch here, where the Rangers were, I get it. You're in a President's Trophy run, but putting a guy in there and trying to give him 8 to 10 minutes a night, that's not going to lose that. And if it is, that's your answer. That's your answer.
You had to get him in there a little bit more rather than 4.5 minutes and the circus, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So this is what's going to happen is they're going to get into the playoffs here at some point and they're going to lose a game and they're going to be kind of flatlined emotionally and they're going to insert him in the lineup. They're going to give him 4 minutes and maybe it gives him some juice. Maybe it doesn't, but it's not going to have the impact that it could have had if you would have found out what you have in Matt Reppy down the stretch.
I think that was well said. I mean, like Laviolette joked about it the other night. I forgot who. I think Gaudreau got kicked out of a draw, and Rempe came in for the faceoff, and you would have thought you would have thought the Rangers scored with the reaction that.
But won't the building be like that anyway in a playoffs?
It will, but it's with him.
It should be theoretically, and I love Ranger fans.
Yeah,
but I also know it gets quiet in there at times.
Okay,
you know, I mean, it gets real quiet at MSG when things aren't going well. When you know Panarin and Mika's not skating 100 miles an hour with his hair in the wind, and Panarin with the one timer, or Trouba with the hit, or Shesterkin with the big save. Like it's very circumstantial.
Yeah.
When things are going good, loud as hell, love it. When it's not, it's a ghost town, and you need something. And I think Matt Reppy potentially brings that, but I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Again, it's a tough spot for Lavi because Lavi has trust and he has loyalty to his fourth line. And here's the thing, they've been really good. So with me saying all of that, I'm not sure how different I would have done it. I just wish it would have been different.
Well, you look at Rupper, you look at every team going back the last 10 years, and I go back to our the 11 team that I was acing with, like the Merlot line, like the Greg Campbell, Dan Paille, Sean Thornton. You go to the St. Louis team, you go to the Vegas team, the team that has a fourth line that spends more time forechecking and wreaking havoc offensively, even though that sounds goofy, usually at the end of the playoffs, that's the team lifting the big trophy. Like the fourth line matters so much in the playoffs, and we see it on display now year after year. And we talk about being built down the center. Like it definitely is like, I don't envy Laviolette having to make that decision. Like it's a hard decision because I think there's validity to everything both of you are saying. Johnny's been saying it for weeks about the fans. We got New York Marine saying it in our chat. And I think there's validity to all of it. It's just, I also know like you need a fourth line that can play, because that's who wins the cup. And so sure, maybe you get him in and you get him out when you have that flatline game, maybe, or whatever. But it's not a simple situation with a simple solution or a simple answer. But these things usually play themselves out in the playoffs. Like they usually answer for you or for us by what these players do. So we'll see, Johnny.
So what do we think, Colby? What's your prediction?
I think Rangers in 5. Like, I think they win the series 4-1.
I agree. Rupper?
Yeah, Rangers in 5 as well. I think Caps win.
We're too aligned here, the three of us. That's back to back. I think we're all pretty much lined up.
Everyone's asking us about Hedl in the chat. I don't think we know, right? I don't think anybody has a real legitimate update on him. You'd be the guy to have it. I'm going to
practice today. I'm going to practice today and tomorrow.
See what you can dig up. Yeah. See what you can snoop around on Hedl.
But in all honesty, though, even if he's good to go, does he? I don't even know if you go with that right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
And I love Phil. I love Filipino. I love what he is. But this team's going good, and you're not going to miss. You're not going to miss slot lines to force it. So I think it's just a matter of, hey, see where things go. Maybe that's the spark. Honestly, if he's good to go at some point, you need a spark. Maybe that's the spark, and that would get the juices going.
Or there's an injury. There's always injuries. Imagine being able to bring a guy in again who's played in the playoffs and succeeded more in the playoffs than the regular season. So he's got this mental confidence that like I can do it in the playoffs. You throw him in, like that's a nice luxury to have as your 13th or 14th forward.
100%.
Right. Let's move on to the series that everyone's talking about, featuring the most elite players on both sides, and that's the New York Islanders and the Carolina Hurricanes. What do we think about this rematch? Because I think both teams got better from last year. It might not be the same story we saw last year, but again, the Islanders are hiding behind this 8-1-1 record, excuse me, in their last 10. Semyon Varlamov has been the guy. They should feel confident going in, but does the record as of late look better than what we're seeing on the ice? I think so.
Yeah. I'll say this, and I'm going to do a quick shameless plug here too, because so I've got a couple buddies. You guys know Mike Kelly. He's with SportLogic. I've known Mike for a long time. He's a director of analytics for SportLogic, and then there's Shane Kelly, who is the director of analytics for SMT. So that's the player tracking that does the data for the league, right? These guys are super bright. Total nerd talk when we talk, but it's been great for me because I have had I've been resistant to analytics for a while, and I've come along in the last number of years because Mike, I'll be frank, a lot of the analytics community, there's a smug kind of, we know everything, we don't even have to watch hockey feel to it, and it's turned me off. And I'm like, okay. And so Mike is not like that. I feel like Mike is one where I can poke fun or poke holes at it, but then also he could do the same to me. And there's been like a nice median or this nice joining of like, hey, the eye test world and the analytics community. So we're going to be running, it's not called anything, but we're going to be throwing out some data and some eye test stuff over the playoffs here. We're just going to throw out different scenarios. And it's really interesting when you sit down and you start talking about certain things, because, and the reason why I bring that up is this series in particular, they brought up this, the idea, what Carolina's been since Rod Brind'Amour has been there, outside of recent couple seasons of the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes dumped the puck in more than anybody, like to a pretty strong degree. And they did a lot this year. And
can I just ask you a question just quickly? When you say dump the puck, are we talking like traditional dump the puck? Or are we just saying play to back ice, soft chips to the corner? Like you mean
I assumed over the red, chip it in and get it.
Yeah, I think that's like option A.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I actually no, it's never option A. If you have an opportunity to go, you go, you make
right.
It
Okay.
But any resistance, like you're totally content with, and you're probably slashing through and you're anticipating that the puck's going to get dumped. So I think it's part of the game plan of dumping the puck in. And if you go back, like even this year through the first, I think 60 games, the Florida Panthers dumped the puck in. I'm talking like hundreds of more times than the next team. Like that's what they do. And Carolina did that and has done that for a number of years. And the last 30 games, they're not dumping the puck in. They're one of the best teams at gaining the offensive line, and they're getting tons of rush chances off of it. And I find this stuff really interesting because I don't see that necessarily playing. Like or watching the games, I should say. Carolina just looks good. I know that they're a team that kind of is a little bit of a throwback, and analytics wise, they always have great numbers, but it doesn't always translate into to wins and getting the goal production. But anyways, the reason why I say this is the one thing I do know watching the Islanders the last couple seasons, they're one of the worst teams in the league at their defensive blue line. They retreat. Their defensemen retreat. I think since they've lost Nick Leddy, they've been a totally different decor as far as they don't have that skating ability and they don't almost have trust in standing up in certain areas of the ice. So I think it's really interesting because it sounds like a very unsexy matchup with, all right, two teams, they dump the puck. They, they got 3-on-3 down low type plays, a lot of zone time, but they don't really score a ton. It's it's going to be a very blah series. I think this could be something where the Islanders, if they don't clean it up or a little more resistant at their defensive blue line, I think this has the making to be a shellacking by the Carolina Hurricanes. So it's just some interesting stuff like that. I know the Islanders, they don't have anything to lose here, but that's a bad team. They defensively, and I go back to what we said about the Washington Capitals. The only reason why they won when they needed to win, and I give them credit. They've got gamers. You talk about individuals on that team. I love this Islanders team individually, but you put them as a group of players, I don't love it, and they don't defend. They defend actually very, very badly in pretty much any kind of measurement this year. They're 30th and above. They need goaltending to absolutely steal them a game, 2 games. And if they're going to win the series, they need goaltending to steal them 4. I just don't see that happening against Carolina.
So Carolina in X.
I'll still give the Islanders a game. I never pick probably sweeps because it's, your team's going to get a pushback and you're going to, I say Carolina though. Carolina, actually, you know what? I've been too disrespectful to the Islanders. The Islanders have gotten the wins and the goals when they needed them. I'll go with the Islanders to win 2 games. It'll be 4-2.
Okay.
That's what it was last year too.
I think Carolina is just too much pace. I think that Islanders team is really gonna struggle to play at that pace. I think even in the neutral zone, I think they'll have a difficult time keeping up. I just think that Noah Dobson's been injured. I'm sure he'll be back for playoffs, but I don't know. I could see this as a sweep or a 4-1 series for Carolina. Like I think Carolina is just too much of a well-oiled machine, too structured, like no holes. So I think that'll be a heavy-handed Carolina series, Johnny.
So give a number.
I'd say 4-1.
Okay. Colby gives me shit because he thinks I kiss the Islanders fans' asses all the time. Carolina in 4.
Oh, there it is.
I'm not even giving them 1.
Do you think Matt Barzal is a franchise cornerstone type of player? Like, I know he's an all-star, but like, do you look at him as like, this is a franchise cornerstone that we could build around to win? We've had the debate, and I've said Braden Point is a much more gets way more accomplished, more useful, better player. If I'm Team Canada and I have to choose between the two of them, I said all 30 GMs would take Braden Point over him. I know there's more than 30 GMs, but I'm just curious, how do you feel about Barzal in particular?
How many years now has it been for him? Where's he in? He's got to be
8.
I think this is 7. Yeah,
7-8 seasons.
His complete game and his competing away from the puck has gotten really good. I mean, does he have moments? Sure, he has moments. Every high-end guy does, as far as, he's not a Selke guy, but man, he competes. I really like his game. I actually compare it a little bit to, put it this way, I compare him, different players, but almost like a Dylan Larkin. Like Dylan Larkin, to me, when he came in the league, I loved his skill. I didn't think he had much past that as far as his game smarts and being able to play on both sides of the puck. Now you talk to me about Dylan Larkin, I really like what I see. I don't know if Dylan Larkin is deemed, I don't know if he's a superstar. He's a star, 100%. I think you win with guys like Dylan Larkin, but to put him in like that what you're kind of saying, like we're going to build around this guy. I don't know if I put him there. And that's probably the same thing with Matt Barzal. I thought Matt Barzal came in and he had some rough going, man. It was some tough, on the ground training for him, where he just made some terrible decisions. I mean, junior hockey to the NHL is hard. Is when you're a skilled guy and you're that skilled like him, you got away with stuff that you might even be able to get away with at times at the NHL level, but there's a time and a place for it, and he wasn't really finding that. He does now. I really like Matt Barzal's game. I just don't think he's a franchise guy where it's like, we've got this guy in place. We just need to compliment him. I think he's one of your horses that you need to have like a committee of 3 or 4 guys and drive it like that. Like, no, he's not a guy. And I would agree with that. If you were to tell me or ask me who I would rather have right now in the playoff or playoff run or one game, it is Braden Point. And it's probably off what he's done in the playoffs. He's one of the greatest playoff performers we've seen as of late. Matt Barzal hasn't had that yet.
Yeah.
And until he does, I like it. I love where he's going. He's still fairly young, but no, I don't consider him a superstar. And I don't think that that's a guy you can put in that category.
Yeah. An all-star, but not a franchise cornerstone player. Jonny, I think you wanted to go to Tampa, Florida next, right?
Yeah, I also just want to thank Rupper again for his time. It was funny. I was texting Rupper yesterday saying like, yeah, you can be on as long as you want. It could be 30 minutes, or if we go longer, just tell us to fuck off and hop off. But he's been so kind so far this morning, and we're going to take advantage of it. So let's get into Tampa and Florida.
What if I just said fuck off now and I left when you tease that one? No.
You would give me something to give Jonny a hard time about for the weekend, so that would work.
That's true. But which you don't really need much of those. I feed Colby ammo basically to shit on me. But this is the series where I feel like it's the hardest one to pick.
Yeah.
Between these two teams, Florida and Tampa. And I don't want to say they're very similar, but I think the style of play here matches up the best. Like there's not necessarily an area that's so much better than another between the two teams. So for this, I look back to the series 2 years ago, and I know that it was a different Florida Panthers team. Tkachuk wasn't there, and the Panthers team that year had won the President's Trophy. But right now, going into the series, I think the biggest difference between the two is the power plays. Florida's power play has been, very, very below average the last 20 games. Tampa's power play has been one of the best, if not the best. And do you think special teams, which I know don't play as much of a factor in the playoffs because the whistles are put away, but do you think that is where these two teams separate? And, the way I look at it is Tampa has the advantage in this series because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could. It certainly could be. I'm just pulling up something while I'm talking to you here.
Yeah, I can give you the number. Over the last 20, the power plays for Florida 13.6% and for Tampa 27.4%. So Tampa's, basically producing twice as much as Florida is in the power play.
So I don't know. I've always been one that power play. How do I word this? Like power plays matter. Obviously, they can win you games, but power plays over the course of a season, no matter where the number is, it doesn't really matter. I feel like as long as you get in the series and you score the timely goal, that to me is what matters. The only thing I see here though is Tampa is a team that I just feel like if you take penalties and Florida takes penalties, Tampa will kill you. Like you won't have a chance. It doesn't even matter it doesn't even matter what your power play does. If you give them opportunities, you're probably going to lose. And they just have. I mean, Nikita Kucherov to me is the best power play forward I've seen in hockey in the last. As long as I've been probably in the league and doing this. So you're talking 20 years. And that includes Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. Like you're talking about greats. I mean, all those guys are phenomenal. Are you kidding me? Kucherov, that's what he does. He is an assassin on the power play.
Literally.
and you want to play that game. It doesn't matter. I mean, Florida's power play could be running at 35% in this series. If you're giving up power play opportunities to the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're going to beat you. So yeah, it comes into play, but I'm not putting too much attention on what Florida's is not. It's more just, it's more the PK. Like, can you slow down at all Tampa's power play? Because I mean, it's so good. To me, that's kind of where a lot of this series is going to be.
I just think the goalies cancel each other out. Like Vasilevsky and Bob have both been so good. You can say Florida's blue line is better, which it probably is, right? I mean, Gustav Forsling is definitely Gustav Forsling is the most least talked about defenseman this year. I think he finished
definitely
with like a
deeper.
58.
It's a deeper blue line, but just can't ever forget Victor Hedman and the fact that he'll play 30 minutes and he won't tire. And he's no
Sergachev though for Tampa.
Superhuman. Right. And so they're going to count on Lilberg, and they're going to count on, Perbix, and they're going to count on some guys that have not a lot of experience. And that is concerning come playoff time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
Dumba. They do have Matt Dumba. Vic, thank you for reminding me on that one. So that ended up being a really sneaky good pickup for Tampa, Rupper.
And you can't forget about Eric Chernak too, the way he come playoff time, he's one of those players, like he always plays pretty rugged style.
His level.
Yeah, but come playoff time, all of a sudden this guy looks like Scott Stevens, right? Like in the way he plays. So we'll see how he figures in. But I do like Dumbo, will give them a jolt. But you guys both mentioned two guys that not to get off track, but just to give them shine. We're talking Norris Trophy this year, and those ballots are due in here. What is it, tomorrow, I think. Gustav Forsling, he should be up on people's ballots pretty high.
And he led the entire NHL in plus 56.
And 56. Victor Hedman, I think he's got to be number 3 for me. Like, I mean, these two guys are the most non-spoken about defensemen in the National Hockey League this year. And it might feel weird because it's Victor Hedman, and Victor Hedman has been such a great defenseman. But Gustav Forsling, just think about when they got him. He was kind of Q's guy, brings him over from Chicago. Like, he's kind of nails, boys. Like, he does everything for you. And I love the way he plays, but he doesn't get enough attention. Maybe that's the way he wants it. But this is going to be a really nice matchup between the two of them, because I think Forsling makes Ekblad a way better defenseman. I think, like you guys mentioned, Victor Hedman, whoever he's with, if it's with Radish, he's elevating whomever he's with as well. 100%. So a little bit of the game inside the game, I think, there for the D matchup.
Ekblad and Larson have been out though, right? Are they going to be back? I think those two have been.
Yeah, I don't know where exactly it's at there with those guys. Obviously there's concern, but the D-core for the Panthers, just experience wise, it's much better, I think, than Tampa's.
So that's going to be the matchup though. It's going to be that D-core against Point and Kucherov. And I got to tell you, Steven Stamkos looking for a contract. Steven Stamkos, that looks like a 25-year-old Steven Stamkos again. I mean, even last night in game 82, and I know they were all trying to get Kuch's 100th, but like, don't sleep on the fact that Stamkos could go off and have a 15-goal playoff this year, because look, he wants to remind people that, like, I'm going to command a big fat contract even at 33. I think he's a 90 birth year, so that would put him at 33 years old, something in that range, 33, 34. But like, that's the matchup. It's that firepower versus that ridiculous D-core.
Colby,
who's going to wilt?
Colby, also don't sleep on Anthony Duclair. Playing against his former team too, right? The team he was on last year. And he's been a pretty good piece for Florida.
Part of that forward group. He's at a point forward group is, I mean, that they can come at you. Yeah. They're deep.
They've got that sandpaper too, where this could be, I think it's going to be a nasty series, but it could be really nasty too, because we know about the guys in with the Florida Panthers, right? We know how, Matthew's going to stir things up. We know about all the guys down there. I mean, what was it? Revered his Cousins is the biggest rat in the game by some of his peers, right? Like, you've got Sam Bennett. I mean, it's going to be nasty in that regard, but let's not forget Tanner Jeannot. I love Tanner Jeannot. I love what he brings. You've got Brandon Hagel. Like that guy just
everything.
You look at his face and you want to get into his face. Easimont, like the guy stirs stuff up out there, like he makes things happen. So that's going to be a really interesting matchup. One thing I want to say about Stammer, and this has always changed what I've thought about Steven Stammer. He was always been elite and great, shooter, great one-timer. I don't know if he's ever gotten his proper due as far as what a great passer he is and how he's actually changed his game over his career. Came in as just an absolute shooter, and then he kind of, with the injuries and stuff, became like more of a passer. Now he's found a way to bring them both together really nicely. I still remember this goal. I was playing for the Rangers. We were playing in Tampa, and just the proper angle I had, it was in our end. I was on the bench. I was leaning over on the boards, and I'm looking, and they're on the power play. And I remember a seam pass comes through to Stamkos, and just the way it lined up from my eyesight right to it was basically in the stick lane or the puck lane of where Stammer's taking his one-timer. Mm-hmm. And Lundqvist tracks it across. And I remember this distinctively. It was the craziest goal I've seen. And I think Steven Stamkos is the most accurate shooter that we've seen in a long time. Like Ovi's Ovi. But Ovi's shot, it's, a lot of times his shots, it's going like this, right?
It's a lot of them.
Yeah, it's going all over.
Not a spiral.
Yeah, Ovi somehow finds a way to hit the middle of the net and score goals, but like that's what makes him great. Stammer's like puts it at pinpoint accuracy. Anyways, so this play ends up happening, and let's use this camera as the puck. So the shot happens. Lundqvist pushes over. He stays upright. I'm telling you, boys, there's a spot like below the crossbar to Hank's shoulder that is not just the puck size for the puck to squeak through, but the way that Hank's shoulder came in, it had to be like in an angle. And this puck, I remember seeing it from my vantage point. It's just complete. It'll be like equivalent to like a tight spiral in football. Puck, there's no this. It was just going and just went. It was like a puzzle piece. Bink, barring in. I'm like, this guy for real? And that, yes, he's not choosing to put the tilt on it. But I'm sitting there thinking to myself,
it works though. It works.
He wanted to put that right inside the elbow. And that was a hard pass across and just put it right there. That guy's shot can flip a game in a second. And what you said, though, he's motivated right now. These great players, and go back to the Michael Jordan documentary. I took it personally. These guys take it personally. You find ways to manufacture stuff. I played for other teams and you move to another team. I'm like, that team didn't want me. They hated me. Even when that wasn't the case. But in my mind, that was the case. And I went out there and you try to use that. Stammer's playing at a pretty elite level right now, so keep an eye on him. I think that this could be a message-sending postseason for Steven Stamkos.
All right, so let's get that prediction. I say the winner of this series plays against the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final. Who's winning this series?
I think Tampa wins this series. I think Tampa wins the series. I think it goes 7 though. I think it's going to be a drag it out series, and I think
that's what has to be right
at that point. You will see Vasi take over, and I actually think it's going to be very similar. Not to bring back some tough moments, a couple years ago, Eastern Conference Finals, where the Rangers were in a position to close out, and they let Vasi get going. And when Vasi started feeling it and he started sniffing the next round, Vasi turned into Vasi and took over that series. And they obviously go on and win the Stanley Cup that year. I think that same thing might happen in this series.
Colby?
I think I'm going to say Tampa in 6. And the reason for that being is I worry about them going 7 because I worry about their health, which has been an issue in playoffs before. And I worry about their depth on their blue line through 7 games. So if Tampa's going to win, which I think they are, somehow they're going to get it done in 6, Johnny.
I think this is the series that everyone wants to go 7, right? Like this is if you had to pick one series to go 7 out of all 8 in the NHL, Western Conference.
Really? Toronto, Boston, you don't want 7?
I'd rather this one.
Winnipeg, Colorado. You don't want 7?
I'd rather this one.
Really, there's some good series that.
But I'd rather this one go 7.
I don't think we need to rank which series we want the most to go 7. How about
my brain?
I want them all. I want them all to go 7. I'm always wanting them all to go 7.
But I'm with Rupper here, and I say Tampa and 7.
Okay.
But Rupper, we want to thank you so much for doing this with us. You've been nothing but kind with your time here, and we will let you go.
All right, guys.
Hey, if there's anything else you want to plug before you hop off?
No, man. Just everybody enjoy the playoffs.
Where can they find the data that you guys are going to be putting out? Yeah, is that just going to be on your and Mike Kelly's social media pages?
Yeah, like literally, we're doing anything that pops out that's like, the data that's, wow, I didn't see that. I mean, it's going to be, hey, listen, it's going to be a little bit of nerd talk, meeting hockey locker room talk, and the battles between what data matters and what doesn't. It's just going to be social media. We're just basically, we have these conversations. Our chat threads are ridiculous, and from the nightly basis, and we're just basically going to find out which things we want to get across and put out there for the fans enjoying the playoffs. So yeah, it's going to be on social media. Not even a name for it. Maybe you guys will give it some share and some love.
Yeah, we're going to reference it on our show.
Yeah, it'll be interesting stuff. I mean, these guys literally are, in my opinion, the smartest guys in hockey. I mean, that Sport Logic is used by 31 of the 32 teams. The amount of stuff that they work with NHL teams on, the player tracking stuff. I mean,
which team doesn't use it?
What's that?
Do you know which is the 32nd team?
The son of a bitch won't tell me, man.
Okay.
I think I know. I'm trying. It's like he won't even give me well, tell me. All right, can I name 5 teams? Put it this way. I don't even want to tip what I think it is because I feel like I'm right and I don't want to put them in a tough spot.
Okay.
Put it this way. I think it's a Canadian market.
Okay.
That's it.
Because my first guess was not that. My just random first guess would have been a team in New York. That's all I was saying.
I don't even know. I don't even know if I'm right. But
they have New York in their name.
It's really interesting stuff. And what I love too is both their companies they work with are kind of competitors. So some of the numbers, they're like, we're the best at tracking this, we're the best at tracking that. But an SMT does the player tracking for all that edge stuff on NHL.com. I mean, it's interesting stuff, guys. Like some of it I look at, I'm like, all right, come on. But then there's a lot of it that I'm like, wow, like some of the Ovi stuff. If I was talking to these guys earlier in the year when Ovi was struggling, and the player tracking that they started seeing that, for an example, Ovi had his spot on the ice, right? He's still shooting the puck at the same volume, but it wasn't dropping for him. That the defenders from player tracking, defenders were defending 3 feet closer. It sounds stupid, but they got data that shows it. And Ovi, and think about it from your guys' application standpoint from playing. When I'm struggling to score goals, you need to change the lateral angle, not the moving away. Ovi was moving back. He was shooting further and further away. And it's like seeing those numbers are crazy. And you see him, you're like, all right, let's see if there's something about it. Then you watch the tape. Ovi's taking one-timers from the fucking wall up by the blue line. I'm like, well, how are you thinking you're going to score right there? It's interesting stuff. And he's made those corrections and whatever. But anyways, yeah, it'll be on our social media. You guys enjoy it. Enjoy the playoffs. Great catching up with you guys. And we'll do it again.
You too, Rupper. Thank you again. We really appreciate it. All right, Colby, that was some good stuff. I know we didn't get into the Western Conference today, so we apologize for any Western Conference folks, but obviously we're running a little bit long on time here, and we'll talk a lot of Western on Monday once the playoffs are underway. But before we do anything else, I want to go into our worst team of the week, which is presented by Out West. And even though this team won 3 straight games, we're giving them the worst team because they had the worst luck by far, and that is the Detroit Red Wings. So the Red Wings are this team's worst team of the week, and it is presented by Out West, which is the best up-and-coming activewear brand in the game. Ready to elevate your style this spring? Introducing Out West, your go-to activewear line for athletes or everyday guys, crafted with quality in mind and priced for the guy not looking to break the bank to upgrade his wardrobe. Out West polos, hoodies, and quarter zips blend comfort and performance seamlessly, ensuring that you look and feel your best as you take on the day. So head on over to outwestgolf.com and use code Cuppa, that's CUPPA in all caps, to get 15% off of your order. And the Detroit Red Wings should be getting their Out West polos and sweatshirts and quarter zips because they're playing golf right now when they maybe shouldn't be with how dramatic those last 3 games were. I mean, I got a feel for those guys in that fan base. Those games were insane and so much fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, look, they're knocking at the door. We'll wait to talk about them next preseason, and you can bet your life again who will get into the playoffs. Good effort, good push. But I think Steve Yzerman has some serious work to do this summer. So let's go to tonight, Johnny, quickly. Yeah. I know you got to get to Rangers skate. Or where are you going? You're going to
Ranger practice in Westchester.
Ranger practice. So you got to get out to Westchester. So
got to find out the Heedle stuff for the show.
Let's look at the games we have left tonight because there's still things left to settle in the Western Conference. And let's start with Vegas because Vegas is going to be our Betway bet of the day. I think it's a good bet for us. We still have this awesome promotion going from our partners at Betway. They're going to give you, they're going to reimburse you $200 on your first bet if you lose. So you're getting a free $200 to bet with. All you do is create a new account. Use the QR code that is on the screen right now. That will automatically get you loaded in for the bonus. If you are to lose that first bet, you can then take the $200 immediately, continue betting on playoff games, build those parlays, bet on whatever sport it is that you like to bet on. Obviously, baseball's back, things going on all over. Offers available only outside of Ontario. Please play responsibly as always. Today's bet of the day, we got VGK in regulation to win this hockey game. They need to win that game in order to avoid playing against who, Johnny?
The Dallas Stars.
The Dallas Stars. So that is a big reason why you want to make sure if you're VGK to win that game. We got that game in regulation. They should win. I think that's a pretty safe bet because they certainly have a lot to play for. It's going to be the Cutter Gauthier debut out in Anaheim. So there's some intrigue behind that game, but you just don't want to have to play the Dallas Stars in round one. You feel a lot better playing the Edmonton Oilers. I'm shocked I'm saying that. But you don't want to run into the Dallas Stars.
No, definitely not. Seen in the chat, New York Marines said Cutter Gauthier anytime goal scorer. Yeah, and MYR Marine also said, can we chat about how insane it is that teams are playing and MYR were at 82 on Monday? Like, it is wild that there are teams playing tonight and then the playoffs start on Saturday. They only have 1 day in between. The Rangers got a full 6 days. But we can catch up on everything on Monday. The playoffs are underway on Saturday. It's going to be a hell of a weekend of hockey. I'm super excited. Colby, I guess before we wrap up right now, we have to do it. Who's a Stanley Cup champion at the end of the day?
Who is going to win the Stanley Cup at the end of the day? Wow, I was not expecting.
I wasn't either. It just popped in my head. I feel like we got to just give something before the playoffs start.
Well, no, because we've got to get our picks in with Matt Larkin for Daily Face-Off, which are going to be published, I believe, sometime tomorrow. So let's not go on the show because I want to actually look through and think through it. Also, I want to see what the matchups are set. So, check out the DFO's website because Matt Larkin will post something with all of our picks at that point. That's where you can catch our picks. I'll be on DFO Live today at 12 hosting that show. So join the YouTube page for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review if you like us. Chirp me, I'm sure. Call me whatever names you have. Call Johnny whatever names you have.
Aaron Cohen, baby.
Give us a subscribe. Give us a review. Give us a comment. These things help us a lot. So if you're one of the people that come here every day, we like to talk with you in the chat. Give us a little love in all of the different platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever it may be. We appreciate that. Johnny, final word?
Nothing. Let's have a weekend. Thank you, guys.
All right. So thanks to Vic for producing the show. Great job in the chat. Mike Rupp was great today. Johnny, get out of here. Get to Westchester. Don't text and drive. We will see everybody first thing Monday morning to talk about playoff hockey.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.